Hi and welcome everyone to today's workshop, Working with Self-Criticism, or as I like to call it, how to fire your inner bully and hire a kinder manager. If you're new here, my name is Maddie. I help people who feel stuck in painful patterns learn how to work with their wounds to create embodied change in their lives. By the end of this workshop, you will understand why your mind can be so mean to you sometimes. You'll realise it's not actually your fault, and you'll learn how to stop emotionally roasting yourself just for existing. There's no toxic positivity, no shame or blame in this workshop, no, just love yourself. Our exploration of self-criticism today is grounded in realism and nervous system level relief as we learn how to work with this pattern in practical ways. So we'll be doing a few exercises together as we go. Before we get started, this is a pay what you can workshop. The link is included in the description below. You can pay whatever you want, but this is my job, so please support this work so I can continue creating transformative healing resources for you. For today's session, you just need a pen, a piece of paper and a quiet place where you won't be disturbed for around 30 minutes. Okay, let's jump right in. Let's meet the main character, the inner critic. Harsh self-criticism is basically when, instead of being your own emotional support animal, you become your own emotional attack dog. It's that internal voice that narrates your life like a hostile documentary. It turns tiny mistakes into personality defects, and it speaks exclusively in absolute statements like, I'm useless, or always mess things up, everyone is judging how I look, or there's something fundamentally wrong with me. Instead of offering grounded feedback like, that didn't go great, but here's what we can do next time, a harsh inner critic will say things like, I'm just such a failure, I never get things right, I'll never be enough. And let's not mix up the inner critic with normal feedback. Healthy self-reflection is different to the inner critic. It says, interesting, what can I learn from this? Whereas harsh self-criticism says, well, you fucked that one up again. With the critic, you're constantly on trial in your own mind, and over time this voice stops feeling less like just a thought passing through, and it starts feeling more like the truth about who you are, which is deeply unfair because this voice collapses behaviour into identity, it turns experiences into the essence of who we are, and it replaces learning with shame. So psychologically, this pattern often starts as a survival strategy that believes, if I attack myself first, maybe others will leave me alone. So as we grow up, what once helped us survive becomes more like an internal bully with a megaphone. From the perspective of neuroscience, when you criticize yourself, your brain activates the same threat circuits as being attacked by someone else or from at risk from something on the outside. So your nervous system goes, danger, danger. Even though the danger is internal, coming from you, the voice in your head, your body doesn't go, oh, this is just internal dialogue and it's essentially meaningless and I'm okay. Your body goes, oh no, we're under attack. And over time, this pattern erodes self-trust, self-safety, and it reduces the ability to feel proud of your achievements without immediately shifting the goalpost on yourself. In its extreme form, your inner world becomes a really hostile, exhausting, and unsafe place to be. Final truth bomb here, I'm sorry to break it to you, but harsh self-criticism is not high standards, strong character, or just being realistic. It's the product of a nervous system trained to relate through threat instead of care, which means it's learned, and what's learned can be unlearned. Now, I'd like you to just pull out your pen and paper and just write down one thing your inner critic says to you frequently. Don't overthink it. Just write down the first thing that comes to your head. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, I'd like you to just look at this statement for a moment and ask yourself these two questions. Does it seem fair? And is it 100% true? There's no judgment here, just go with your honest answers. How does it feel to read this sentence back to yourself? Does it make you feel sad, anxious, frustrated, ashamed? Whatever it is, it's okay. Just say to yourself, when I say this sentence to myself, it makes me feel, fill in the blank. So we'll be working with this sentence a bit more soon. Next, let's look a bit more closely at some of the causes of self-criticism. Plot twist, you weren't born being judgmental about yourself. You weren't laid there as a baby thinking, oh, all I do is cry, I'm so emotional. Or, honestly, I should be doing better at this breastfeeding thing. Self-criticism generally develops in our early years in environments where approval was conditional, mistakes were punished harshly, or our emotional needs were seen as inconvenient or unacceptable to our caregivers. So the mind learns, let me attack myself first before anyone else does. Children that grow up in unpredictable environments become tiny emotional detectives. What did I do wrong? How should I be? How do I not get in trouble? How can I be acceptable? And over time, this tight self-vigilance becomes a permanent internal surveillance system, and it is exhausting. At an attachment level, if caregivers felt unsafe, unreliable, or shaming for you as a child, your mind made a deal instead of, my caregivers are unsafe, because that belief threatens our very survival. It chose, there must be something wrong with me, I'm the problem. Because blaming yourself is easier and safer and less scary than risking the loss of that vital connection in your childhood. In addition to this, the external critical voices that we hear and that causes emotional pain become internal structures instead, echoing our environment and painful experiences, the impatient authoritarian parent, the humiliating teacher, the comparing and judgmental peer group around us. And even when those people leave our lives, their emotional turn stays inside of us, and we replay it in our own mind as our own voice. Your nervous system learned that hypervigilance equals safety. We think that if we can preempt the harshness first, then maybe other people won't do it to us. So calm feels suspicious, ease feels lazy, and self-trust just feels dangerous. To top it all off, culturally, we live in a world that says worth is equal to productivity, value equals performance, that rest is a moral failure. So self-criticism isn't just personal, it's also socially normalized emotional violence. In other words, it's part of the accepted culture that shapes our daily lives. But that doesn't mean that we have to live our lives at the behest of the inner critic. An important reframe here is that your inner critic is not your personality. It's simply an opinionated memory. It's not truth. It's emotional history pretending to be identity. So let's take a closer look at what this pattern is trying to do. So here's the wild part. Your inner critic is not evil. It's just extremely outdated. Its job description is to prevent emotional disaster at all costs. So it monitors you, it corrects you, it shames you, and it terrifies you into compliance because it believes if I'm ruthless enough with myself, we might be safe. So it tries to keep you small so you won't be judged. It rehearses worst case scenarios, and it shrinks your ambition, telling you you're not good enough for that. And it emotionally pre-burns you so that nothing else hurts you worse at a later point. So it creates an illusion of control in a world that once felt really uncontrollable, scary, and unsafe. It's that thought that if I can't control the world, I maybe can control myself. And it's the biggest scam because it equates suffering with growth. We tell ourselves things like this all the time. No pain, no gain, yeah? If I'm miserable, I must be improving, which is saying things, it's like saying, if I'm bleeding, I must be healing, or it'll get worse before it gets better. At a deeper level though, harsh self-criticism is really about belonging. It's that voice that constantly asks, am I acceptable? Am I too much? Am I enough yet? And ironically, the critic gives us a sense of identity. Some people just don't know who they are without it, which is why letting it go can feel a bit like emotional unemployment, because the truth is that your inner critic is not trying to destroy you, even if it does feel that way sometimes. It's trying to protect you with strategies that once made sense in a world that you've now outgrown, even if your nervous system still relives it. It's a misguided internal bodyguard who now tackles you when you're just trying to take a shower, yeah? So Next, we're going to connect with the inner critic in a simple parts exercise. So I'd like you to invite you to just close your eyes, get comfortable, and take a deep breath in. And slowly release. And we're going to do that one more time. Just a deep breath in. And slowly release. Now, I'd like you to imagine your inner critic sitting on a chair opposite you. Don't overthink it, just notice how old the part is and what it looks like. Is it scared? Angry? Frustrated? Maybe a bit defiant? Whatever you see, just take a breath and accept what's there. And then, trusting the answers that arise for you, I'd like you to ask the part, what do you want me to know about how you feel? And just trust the answer that comes. Next, I'd like you to ask the part, what are you trying to protect me from? Again, just trusting whatever you hear, whatever impression you get. And finally, I'd like you to ask the part, what do you need from me right now? And just take a moment to note that. And next, I'd like you to thank the part for showing up to talk to you today. And take a nice deep breath in. And release. And you can open your eyes. Give a little wiggle in your fingers and toes. Stretch your neck a bit. Okay, well done. So let's have a closer look at what self-criticism sounds like, because the inner critic is not subtle. It's quite easy to spot. It narrates your life like David Attenborough was taken over by Donald Trump. Yeah, it's mean. Its favourite words are things like always, never, everyone, no one, failure, wrong, useless. And it says things like, what's wrong with you? You should be better by now. Everyone else can handle this. You're the problem. So it comes up quite a lot in our daily life. And the tone of this voice is key to recognising when the inner critic is active. It's not curious, it's not warm, and it's not supportive. It sounds cold, sharp, judgmental, and contemptuous. And it sounds extremely confident because it presents opinions as facts. It doesn't ask, what's going on for you right now? How can we move forward? It declares, case closed, you suck. Psychologically, it often sounds exactly like someone from your past who once made you feel small, hurt, or sad. So this voice, when we pay attention to it, is often going to sound like or replicate the language of the person who first said it to us. And it's reactive. Event leads to judgment without pause, no context, no compassion. And it personalizes everything. Tired becomes lazy, anxious becomes weak, and confused becomes our incompetence. And over time, the inner critic stops feeling less like a voice and becomes just how I think. But emotionally, it always feels the same. And this is how we can spot it. It feels tight, urgent, shaming, and unsafe. You're permanently on trial inside your own mind, and that is reflected in the way that your inner critic makes you feel. Clue? Not great. So I'd like you to just look at the sentence you wrote down earlier and imagine it being spoken aloud. If it helps, you can read it aloud. Does this voice remind you of a specific person who may have said this to you? The wording or the tone? Is it familiar? And just make a note of that. At what time in your life might this have taken place? Is there a specific time or place that you associate with this phrase? And what was happening? How old are you? Just note those things down for now. Let's take a closer look now at what self-criticism feels like in the body. Because your body fully believes your thoughts, it can't tell fact from fiction. It just responds to whatever you're thinking. When the inner critic arises, the body doesn't go, oh, this is just self-talk. It goes, oh, we're under attack. So the body responds accordingly as if it was under attack. So we're going to be experiencing a clenched jaw, raised shoulders, a tight chest, twisting stomach, shallow breathing, and internally there's going to be this sense of bracing. Basically, you're in fight or flight because of a sentence you thought. So this sense of urgency can become necessary if we're in real danger, but if we're not, and we're probably not, and we let the inner critic run riot over our thoughts and experiences, then the long-term result is going to be that we feel wired but tired, chronically tense all the time, like we can't fully relax, and like we're always slightly preparing for impact. Self-criticism also disrupts body awareness, so the body becomes more of a constant problem to manage rather than a place to live. So one of the deepest aspects of the critic's tactics is self-shaming, which shows up somatically as slumped posture, like a wanting to disappear, like a collapsing in on yourself instead of like an outward motion or mobilization. So even when nothing is happening externally, your body feels unsafe because the threat is internal. So your nervous system is living in an emotionally hostile home. So what we're going to do now is just a really simple somatic self-connection exercise. So I'd like you again to close your eyes and just take a few deep breaths. And release. Now, I'd like you to just bring to mind the self-critical sentence that you wrote down earlier. And as you think this thought, just notice where you feel the thought in your body. This might be obvious or subtle, just trust it. Now, I'd like you to drop your attention into this place in your body and just notice any sensations that arise there. If you didn't get a sense of where your thought lives, don't worry, just focus your attention on your chest area. And we're going to do this for about 30 seconds. Just breathe and notice any sensations, any feelings in your body that you feel called to notice. And just watch them, just feel them. Again, just breathe. If your thoughts wander, and you find your mind thinking thoughts or scenarios, just witness them and let them pass and return your attention back to your body. Okay. And now bring your attention to your heart area, your heart space. Take a deep breath in and open your eyes. Great, well done. Just take a moment to jot down where in your body you felt this sentence, if you did, and any sensations that arose for you in this place. If you didn't feel anything, don't worry. It can take a little bit of practice to get used to this self-connecting somatic or body feeling exercise. Being able to notice our bodily sensations and be present to them is important because it expands our ability to just notice and be with these sensations as they occur in our system. And it gently brings our nervous system out of attack mode and our self-regulation system comes back online. So let's have a little look next at how self-criticism can show up in our behaviours. Because the inner critic shapes our outer life experiences, it influences how we act. Common patterns include avoidance and procrastination. So we're going to be doing behaviours like putting off tasks until the last minute, avoiding applying for jobs or opportunities or promotions. We're going to be engaging in perfectionism. The critic sets impossible standards to prevent shame. So this might show up as overworking or over-preparing, difficulty finishing projects, spending excessive time on small details. We're going to be people-pleasing because if the critic says you're too much or you're not enough, you may try to earn safety. So you might be doing things like over-apologising, have difficulty saying no, and suppressing your real opinions. We might be overcompensating or proving ourselves, trying to outrun the critic by outperforming it. So behaviours might include constant achievement chasing or needing external validation or comparing yourself excessively. We also might be engaging in self-sabotage because the critic might unconsciously create the very outcomes it fears. So behaviours here will include quitting something before we can do well at it, starting conflicts when feeling insecure, or neglecting our self-care. So we're going to, all of these behaviours, I might add, none of them are personality flaws. They're indicators of a nervous system that doesn't feel safe enough to stop or to rest. And over time, this creates a loop where self-criticism leads to cautious behaviour, which leads to more self-criticism. So the critic says, see, you need me, and it becomes a self-sustaining emotional economy. So I'd like you to choose just one behaviour that you commonly do when your self-critic kicks into gear, and just write it down. Just a few words. Now next, I'd like you to write down one simple thing that you can do to interrupt this behaviour when you notice it. That might be something as simple as like going woo in your head, or 1, 2, 3 stop, or some other way of alerting yourself that this behaviour is happening. And I'd like you to write down an alternative action that you can take instead, that you can consciously choose to practice when the critic arises. Okay, well done. Let's move on to the last part. So, what can we do about the harsh self-critic? The good news is that we're not fighting the critic, we're just changing our relationship to it. So we've learned that the first step is awareness, being able to name it gently when the critic arises. We now know what this voice sounds like, what it feels like, and how it shows up for us. So when we hear the voice, we can simply name it. Oh, there's that inner judge, or oh, there's that voice. Hello, inner critic. And this creates distance. You stop being the voice and you start observing the voice instead. So neurologically, you just moved immediately from threat mode into regulation mode. Step 2 is integration. We talk to the voice and we ask it, what are you afraid of? What are you trying to protect me from? And usually the answer is something like rejection, failure, shame, being unlovable, or feeling unsafe. Remember, this voice isn't really a bully. It's a scared bodyguard that just doesn't want you to be hurt again. Step 3 is transmutation. That's somatic experiencing, allowing the state of feeling to be experienced and released, and replacing distortion with realism by reframing the sentence. So if the inner critic tells us that we always mess things up, we're not going to believe that I'm amazing and perfect instead, but we can find truth in, I'm struggling right now and that's human, or I made a mistake and I'm learning, or this is hard and I'm trying. Note here that the tone matters almost as much as the content, extending a bit of basic self-compassion to yourself. And in doing this, you're retraining your neural pathways in your brain from threat to care. And finally, step 4 is embodiment. Ask, what would I say to someone I love? And then say that inwardly to yourself and notice what happens in your body. Your breath is going to soften, your muscles are going to release, your nervous system will settle. That's not psychology, that's biology responding to safety. You're building a new internal attachment, being with yourself instead of against yourself. So one final task for you today. Take that sentence you wrote down at the start. I'd like you to reframe it into a more balanced, kind and compassionate sentence instead. Because you're now shifting from threat-based relating, I must fix myself to be acceptable, mistakes are dangerous, pressure keeps me safe, to care-based self-relating. I can support myself through difficulty. Mistakes are information. Safety allows growth. This isn't laziness and it's not indulgence. This is how nervous systems actually learn. And small shifts like this matter and build up over time because your nervous system responds more to turn than it does to logic. One warm sentence can lower stress hormones, reduce shame, increase resilience, improve motivation, and help you build self-trust. And when you do this, you're not just changing thoughts, you're changing the emotional climate that you live inside. And over time, your inner world stops feeling less like a courtroom, a battlefield, a hostile workplace, and it starts feeling like a place you're allowed to exist without being on trial all the time, which honestly is the bare minimum that we deserve. So if you enjoyed this workshop, please join me in the next one. And if you want to take your healing journey with self-criticism further, you can check out the self-criticism short course in the description below as well. That comes with like a little workbook and some different lessons to help you go deeper into this pattern. Otherwise, I'll see you soon in the next workshop. Take care for now. Bye.